Good morning, everyone. This is Julie Nelson with McKissick, and I've got Christopher Kai on the line with us as well. Hope you're doing well for this Monday morning, and thanks for joining. I'd like to start off by introducing Christopher, and then we'll talk about a couple of housekeeping things. So Christopher is an entrepreneur, international speaker, and best-selling author, and he's given over 1,000 presentations to a global audience from 30 countries. He's spoken to thousands of realtors across 21 states, and he was the keynote speaker at the Leaders in Luxury Conference for the Institute for Luxury Home Marketing, the Southern California Real Estate Synopsium, and the upcoming Real Estate Super Summit in LA. His core message is that if you want to build a successful real estate business, you have to understand the art and science of relationship building, which is exactly why we're here today. He just published his third book, Big Game Hunting, Networking with Billionaires, Executives, and Celebrities. So let's welcome Christopher. And then I would also like to encourage you guys to submit any questions that you've got throughout the webinar for Christopher. We'll have a Q&A session after he's done. So keep those questions coming, and we'll get to those at the end of the webinar. Thanks so much. Christopher, over to you.
Go ahead, Julie.
You're
Thank you so much, Julie. Thank you, everyone, for being on this webinar. I was on a webinar last year with some of you, so I appreciate the opportunity again, Julie. So I'm going to jump right in, and I'm going to hopefully have a lot of time for all of your questions. And so let's just jump right in. The title of the webinar is, how do you build your successful business one relationship at a time? Because really, especially in the real estate world, it really is about not so much oh my gosh, I have to meet everyone, and it's more about, let me meet one person, and then a second person. And then you can see in the slideshow, every single relationship you have is really a key to opportunity. And every single key of opportunity is really another door of another client. But beyond that, it's you're helping someone find their home, their dream home, or you're helping someone sell their dream home to someone else that's going to buy it. But it's a very visceral and personal experience, and so much so that though I was born and raised in New York City, ethnically Chinese, and the character for home is literally the same character for family. So literally, it's so ingrained, family and home are so ingrained that when you help someone buy or find a home, it's so personal. So I want you to remember that, because I do work and speak with thousands of realtors around the country, and sometimes it's very easy to get caught up about the numbers and the landscape and how much square footage and the great school systems. But it goes just so deeply, because it's important to recognize that, because though you're selling something, you're selling really a dream and a promise. And so keep that in mind. So let's just jump right in. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. This is the agenda, why I even give these webinars or speeches, my story, and the 3 to 9 is what I talked about in the description of this webinar. I hope you get a lot of information. If you have any questions, feel free to email me. My email is chris@christopherkai.com. chris@christopherkai.com. Feel free to email me at any time. Of course, you can ask questions here on this webinar as well, but after the webinar, if you have any questions, feel free. My last name is Kai. It's chris@christopherkai.com. So as Julie mentioned, I wrote this book last year, and Maya Angelou, who's a famous poet, she once said that when you learn, teach, when you get, give. And those 8 words really symbolize what I feel my life purpose is. When you learn, teach, when you get, give. So I have been fortunate enough to travel all around the world and the country and just going to all these amazing events. And so people kept asking me, hey, Chris, why don't you write a book about this? And I thought, you know what? I want to write a book about this. This is not my first book, but I essentially decided to codify and write all the things I've learned over the last 20 years into 3 very basic things, which is really, what do you do before an event, what do you do during an event, and what do you do after an event? And I kept it very bold sounding. I mean, hunting is not so much about predatorial, it's about being hungry. If you are all a fan of Steve Jobs, one of his most epiphanous speeches was about 11 years ago, and he was at Stanford University, and he said, the very last thing he said was, stay hungry, stay foolish. Stay hungry, stay foolish. That's something that I really encourage you all to be. Be hungry for opportunity. That's the only way you can network and just work with people that are affluent in your field. And again, if you have any questions later on, please feel free to ask. but I want to definitely go over some of the main points that I mentioned in the webinar description. And the why, again, of these things is because after releasing this book, last year alone, I gave 28 speeches and 6 webinars. This year, I've already been to Atlanta, Georgia, and I was in Palestine and Israel. I coached 16 startups on branding and networking for the U.S. consulate. So it's been an exciting ride where I get to not just talk to realtors, but entrepreneurs, and it gives me an ability to share with you some of these thoughts and some strategies. So let me share a little bit about my own story. For those of you who think, oh, Chris, I can't network at a higher level, I can't do this, I can't do that, and so much of life is about our mindset. And so just to let you know, I didn't grow up with money at all. My mother was a school teacher, my father was a case manager. Here in front is me. I don't know if you see my little my arrow counter, but I used to love to play at the beach, and you can see I was not very fond when my mother was saying, Chris, take a picture. Actually, my name in Chinese is G, but she's like, G, take a picture. And you can tell I'm not very happy that I have to interrupt myself while I'm playing with my sand in my sandbox or my bucket. To the left is my second brother, Eddie, who's always in his own world too. And in the back is my oldest brother, Tim. And for those of you who know who have older siblings, though at least for me, I never really admitted it when I was a kid, but I really, 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 really appreciate the fact that I did have 2 older brothers, and Tim, the oldest of us 3 boys, was always looking after us. Oops, sorry about that. But like I said, modest household, mother's a school teacher, father's a case manager, had a lot of hand-me-down clothes. My mother would actually make her version of hamburgers where she didn't actually have hamburger buns. She would actually put the hamburger patty onto 2 Wonder Bread. And so when I would go to school, St. Mary's Elementary School when I was a kid, I would not look forward to eating my lunch because as hungry as I was, there was a soggy bread sandwich waiting for me that my mother, bless her heart, made for me for lunch. So again, it's possible to network at whatever level you want, provided you have the mindset, and if I can do it, you can definitely do it. I had a lot of challenges growing up. I talked a lot, so surprise, surprise, I talk for a living now, and they would have me stay after class and write out on talking class 100 times, 200 times, and my 3rd grade teacher was so angry that she had me write it 500 times, if you believe that, which is why my handwriting is atrocious. They also labeled me as having a reading disability, and so not only was I being punished for talking too much, I had a reading disability, so therefore I wasn't smart either. And lastly, I was very short. Now, that is probably the most challenging thing as a man, and for those men on this webinar, you know, it's really tough. I mean, if you're a woman, you can always wear heels. If you're a man in your shirt, it's quite a tough thing. And so that picture is actually me graduating in 8th grade. I was 4'10". Now I want you to sink that into your mind. I was 4'10". My nephew was like 5'4", I think, when he was 13 years old. And I was 4'10", and I happened to go to an all-boys school, a private school in Jamaica, Queens, where I'm from, New York City. And so you can imagine, if you watch some of the freshman class pictures, I was this little, almost like a dwarf, and then the shortest kid was about 5'1", 5'2", and so it was a challenging time for me, to the point where, this is pre-Twitter days, these are actual screenshots of some of my graduation yearbook messages from my actual friends. Again, before they had Twitter where they can disguise their name, Bobby or Ray or Noel just told me how they felt. You know, Bobby is like, oh, I'm looking forward to seeing you in high school. Ray calls me a dwarf, and Noel, to his credit, he's like, keep eating those vitamins. You know, be patient, you'll grow. Now, I share these things with you because it's so important to be able to communicate and connect with people. And though I travel all around the world and country, and I talk about how some of the things I've done, and I've been working with the U.S. consulate, what they most gravitate to are the stories I share. So I encourage you, if you want to start building rapport and building relationships, you really do want to share a little bit about yourself. Not always, obviously, but when you share stories, stories are actually 22 times more memorable than facts. Let me say that again. Stories are 22 times more memorable than facts. And so this is about the art and science of building relationships. Just keep that in mind. Learn how to share your story, because when you think about life, all the people that have inspired us in life, whether it's Gandhi, Rockefeller, Oprah, all these people have had their story. Steve Jobs, right? So think about what your story is and how you can share that story. And even before they studied this, back in the Aristotle days, there's a book called Talk Like TED. And he talked about how Aristotle knew that it was really about story as well. Talk Like TED is a book about TED Talks, for those of you who love learning things, TED.com. And he literally found that though the credentials are important, facts and figures are important, but 65% of someone's effectiveness as a communicator, as a storyteller from Aristotle's days are from the pathos, which is the emotional appeal, which is the story, which is why I share that. And I'm so grateful and gratified that when I give these large speeches, people come up to me and say, Chris, I had an issue with my height too. Or a guy named Klaus from Germany said, I had a crazy teasing problem because people would tease me with my big ears. So know that wherever you are in life, whatever challenge you've had, obstacles and struggles, know that those struggles and obstacles and challenges would give you the empathy to relate to people. So I really encourage you to own your past, appreciate the scars on your back and on your soul, because those scars are those stories that you want to share with people, because that's how you'll be able to connect with your clients and people in general. Thankfully for me, around 12 years old, I had an uncle named Ding, and he was the first person, what I call a big gamer. A big gamer is a person of influence. He's the first person. On one side, I was getting teased, I was getting punished, I was getting ridiculed, and then my uncle at age 12, he said, hey Chris, I believe in you. I want you to help me in my uncle's insurance company. It helped me in his insurance company. So at age 12, I started working at my first job, helping my entrepreneur uncle, and he's the first person to really exponentially help me see my future in life. And so in your case, if you want to see your future, start surrounding yourself with people that are like Uncle Ding. And you might even have these people in your life in the past, because I didn't even realize how important this man was in my life until last year when I started speaking specifically on the subject, though I've given, like I said, over 1,000 speeches, but for this specific topic with this specific book, it really allowed me to see that, wow, aside from my mother, who is the reason why I am who I am, and whatever I am or will be in life is because of my mother in terms of that foundation, if she loved me unconditionally. But the second person would be my uncle, which is the person that taught me how to be an entrepreneur. So I share this story because in life, whatever you've gone through, find those people in your life, give them credit. If you don't have those people in your life, then find them now. There's no really reason why you can't find mentors in your life to help you become that person you aspire to be. These are some of the experiences that I've had. I've been very fortunate. I left my last corporate job in 2000 at American Express. I used to work in sales. I used to develop executive level sales presentations. So it gave me a very high level understanding of how to sell, which is why when I left my last corporate job 16 years ago, I've been a consultant for that time. But really in the last year is really when I've been able to codify how I go about going from an employee at a company to being a consultant, to working with multinational companies, to working with very successful entrepreneurs across various industries. And when you look at the things that I talk about in this speech, some of them are very basic, some of them are common sense, but they really do work because I've used them, my clients have used them, a lot of realtors have used them. I'm very blessed for that. For those of you who are ever in LA, this is actually Rotary 5. It's one of the oldest Rotary clubs in the world, and they have a weekly luncheon, and I was grateful enough to be honored, and not honored, but I was grateful enough to speak there for their Rotary Club. These are some of the clients that I've worked with, and the beauty of what I do is when I tell people, when I go to these conferences, you might realize this, like the first thing they often ask is, oh, where do you live, where are you based out of? Because at that conference, sometimes, if you're in the same area, you don't really want to be hanging out with that many realtors because it's hard for you to stand out. So I tell them off the bat, I'm not a realtor. I'm not in the real estate business. I'm in the relationship business, and I help people, whether they're realtors, wealth managers, small business owners, assistants, personal trainers. It doesn't really matter. It's about anyone in a sales role or anyone that wants to improve their life. I help them. These are some of the press I've got. This is all things that I want you to consider for yourself too, where it's never been more possible to get press coverage, because Inc. magazine, Huffington Post, I'm a contributor of Huffington Post. You have staff writers, and then you have people that contribute, meaning they're volunteer writers. So if you want to get, let's say, featured in an article, you literally, if you're reading an article, just approach that person who's a contributor and literally ask them, hey, I would love to be featured perhaps in your article, but give them a reason. I was just watching a video with Gary Vaynerchuk. Gary Vaynerchuk is like the guru of online marketing, and he said, you know what? If you're, let's say, a lawyer, why not write about something that your client might be interested in? So in your case, as realtors, instead of writing about real estate, why not write about how safe your neighborhood is? If your neighborhood is really safe, well, why not like create a blog or write about a blog? And ultimately, if you're writing about how safe a neighborhood is, and then you're the person that's referenced, well, there you go, having an opportunity to be featured in an article talking about how safe a school system is or how safe a neighborhood is. And oh, who's the authority? You are. So keep that in mind. I share this with you to let you know that I have been profiled, but it's also an opportunity for you to get profiled too, because it's never been more possible. So let's jump right into some of the very key points. Overcoming your fears. What's funny is when you look at the dictionary version of fear, it literally says an unpleasant emotion, right? An unpleasant emotion about someone or something that's dangerous. Now, mind you, for about 155,000 years, we were hunter and gatherers, and then about 10,000 years ago, we got into the whole farming and agriculture. And so what I'm getting at is, so much of this fear comes from the amygdala, which is the right-hand side, the negative feelings. And what's important is that you recognize that so much of our fears, quote unquote, are really just not realistic, because for 155,000 years, we're hunter and gatherers. We literally go hunting or gathering, so we had that fight or flight. But it's kind of almost nonsensical now when we go to events, and let's say you walk up to someone and that person completely ignores you, says something rude, isn't very friendly, but so what? I mean, is it dangerous? I don't think so, right? It's unpleasant. Is it a threat or is it painful? It might be painful, but I want you to know that I put this little arrow here because it seems so like ridiculous that so much of our life is based on fear, and yet it's this little tiny dot. So I want you to just look at that dot and say, you know what, this little amygdala is part of our brain, and it's our brain. So I want you to recognize that if you want to overcome your fears, just know that fear is normal, but it's predicated more on our reptilian brain, and it's unnecessary. And the way you get through that is just having more courage. And courage is literally just pushing through those fears, not necessarily having the absence of fear, but recognizing what fear is, recognizing that's the little dot, and just every day do one thing you're afraid of. Because courage is like a rubber band. The more you do things you're afraid of, the more courage you have, which it expands. But the less things you do afraid of, you're not going to be as courageous. And it can be as simple as, you know what, Chris, I'm going to take your advice. Normally, let's say in LA where I'm from, I'm in Beverly Hills, if I'm going to take the 10 freeway, I'm just going to go on a side street. Wherever you are, maybe take a different road to work. Or let's say you're waiting online for a coffee at Starbucks. Well, just start talking to someone online. Or let's say go to a movie by yourself or take a vacation by yourself. Whatever your skill set is, just know that if you want to overcome your fears, you have to have courage. And you might say, oh, Chris, I'm afraid. Well, that's the point. We all have fears, but look at this little tiny red dot, and that's what prevents us, all of us, from living our dreams. It really is that simple, because I've traveled all around the world, I've met tens of thousands of people, and the single most important quality you need is courage. And the best way to do that is just do one thing you're afraid of every single day. Because a week from now, guess how much more courageous you will be? A month from now, a year from now, and I would be blessed and happy to know when you email me one day at chris@christophercott.com and say, Chris, I took your advice, I was courageous, I asked that girl out, I told that man I liked him, and I feel more confident. But remember, courage is a rubber band. The more you do it, the more it expands. The less you do it, the more it constricts. That's how you overcome fear, by making habits of it, recognizing what the issue and challenge is, and just understanding that that's our reptilian brain. We've evolved much more. So keep that in mind, okay? What's also important is understanding your why. Ray Dalio is a hedge fund guy. He's very successful. Work for what you want. When you understand that, as long as you know your purpose in meeting someone, you have the business idea, the service-oriented idea, the philanthropic idea, meaning just be clear. Before I wrote this book, my business why was, you know what, I want to meet someone that grosses $100 million, primarily male, over 40. Service, I do a lot of nonprofit work, so I have a volunteer program where I invite speakers. Maybe if I meet someone, oh, they're a Navy SEAL, or they're a multi-platinum winning Grammy winner, I want to invite this person into my youth program that I started for homeless kids. And lastly, personal. Sometimes, literally, you may not know how you're going to do business, but if you find people that are interesting, there's a reason why that person is interesting. So a few years back, I was coming back from a cousin's wedding in Boston. For those of you in the East Coast, what's up, East Coast? As I mentioned to you, I'm from New York. And Sitting next to me was a guy named John. John turned out to be a former Navy SEAL officer. He turned out to be on 500 missions, and he's a sniper. So literally, for 3+ hours on a train from Boston to New York, he was going from Boston to DC, where he lives in DC. I got to talk to a former Navy SEAL officer who had his master's degree, who was on 500 missions. I was like, oh my gosh, this is so cool, right? Now, I didn't know, frankly, well, I knew he was a consultant. I didn't know how we were going to do business together. And if we often pigeonhole someone and say, hey, what do you do? And you tell him what you do, or you tell her what you do, and then he shares what he does, and you already pigeonhole him or her, and you're like, I don't really need to know this person. In John's case, I honestly, like I said, didn't know how we do business together. He was an interesting person. I want to be an interesting person. I want to be a cool person. So what do? You hang out with people that are interesting. So we kept in touch. One of my friends named Corinne, who at the time was going to law school in LA, she was going to go potentially get a job in DC. I told Corinne, hey, Corinne, you should meet John. He's a very well-connected man. He's a really genuine guy. You guys should connect. So Corinne took my advice. John took my advice for meeting Corinne. It didn't hurt that Corinne was a very attractive woman. And Corinne ended up meeting John in DC. They ended up dating, and now they're married. They're married based on one interaction I had with a man on a train about 4 years ago. If I thought very myopically, it's like, oh, I can't get anything out of this person, this would never have happened. He literally would never have gotten married to this friend of mine. But because I was open-minded, because I wanted to give, because I wanted to keep things, this guy's cool from a personal standpoint. My why is I want to live an interesting life. And so that's an example, just try your best to give. Try your best to keep an open mind, because in this case, literally, I was a matchmaker. I was serendipitously a matchmaker. So keep that in mind, okay? Have a business why, who you want to meet, be very specific in terms of the gender ideally, the income class, where they're from, because it's important to be mindful. Service, please get involved with some kind of service, because a lot of the successful people I meet are very involved in philanthropic. And then personally, just meet people that are interesting. It's important. Next thing is know what to say. And I always do my best to keep it simple. Just compliment them. It's so simple. You don't have to have rocket science, but it's those simple things where it sometimes works the best. And so a polite compliment literally might be, oh, that's a nice tie, or a nice hat, or a nice scarf, or a nice purse. What I actually like is, I'm not sure if you can see this, but I'll comment on the necklace. And my necklace, my grandfather gave me. We've had family reunions for 26 years, and this is really, really important for me, because my grandfather gave this to me almost 30 years ago. And we've had reunions, so every single one of my cousins has this, and so I'm very close to my cousins. We literally are like brothers and sisters. My point is, when you start complimenting them, just sharing basic details, it allows you to build a rapport. And it's just icebreaker, right? And also simple things like, how did you find out about this event? Or what do you think about this event? They're just very, very simple things. And the thing is, in life, if you want to succeed, you have to have certain habits and systems. And my habits and system is I'll compliment someone, I'll smile, and it's basic, but it really works. And then just start asking basic conversation, because you don't want to give up these opportunities based solely on when you go to an event, and we've all been there, by the way. You go to an event, you see someone you want to beat, but you're just like petrified, you're just scared. All you have to do is walk up to the person. I have something called a 3-second rule. If you have to wait more than 3 seconds to go up to someone, you've waited too long. So yes, we have the fear, but we talked about that with this little tiny part of our brain called the amygdala, right? It's back in our past days. We don't need that anymore for the most part. Compliment them, ask basic questions. It's so important. Keep it simple. 3-second rule, just go out and ask, right? The next thing is, what's even more important than what you say is listening. This is the beauty of the Chinese language. This is the character for the Chinese language for listen. And literally, the beauty of Chinese characters, though, when you phonetically translate it, this is in Mandarin, it's ting or tingni, means, what ting dani means I'm hearing you or listening to you. But it sounds like, inconsequential in the English language, but on the left-hand side, that's the ear part. This is the think part. On the top right-hand side, this is to be present. This is eyes. This is actually the character for one. It's literally one straight horizontal line, which means to be focused unconditionally. And lastly, the most important thing is heart. It's about feeling. So when you listen to someone, it's so much more important that what you listen to than what you say. So you're listening not just with your ears on the left-hand side, and you're actually listening to them with your eyes, but most importantly, listening with your heart. I actually have an article that I wrote based on a speech called Connect More Deeply, and this is how you connect more deeply on a more personal level in less than 5 minutes. You listen more to what they're about. I'm happy to send that article to you, and this is how you connect more deeply in less than 5 minutes. This goes beyond my opinion. This is about empirical evidence. But let's say you meet someone, and instead of saying, hey, what you do, why don't you ask them, who's the one person you most enjoy spending your time with each day? I'll repeat that. Who is the one person you most enjoy spending your time with each day? I was in Jerusalem, the holy city. If anyone ever wants to see some of the most amazing religious sites, whether you're Muslim, whether you're Christian, whether you're Jewish, I went to the old city, is where they literally have Jesus Christ's tombstone. I mean, it's crazy. But I gave a speech there, and I asked this question: who's the one person you most love spending your time with? This woman gets up, she gets all excited. She's like, Chris, every morning I get up at 8 o'clock. Excuse me. Every morning I get up at 8 o'clock and I go swimming with my swimming partners. I love to swim, but literally her whole physiology changed. Her eyes lit up. She started smiling. She was like, if I don't go see my swimming partners, I just won't be happy. I'll be stressed out. I'll be depressed. And so I asked her a question, a simple question: who's the one person you most love spending your time with? I talked about her interests, and I talked about relationships. And physiologically, what happens is there's this thing called the happy chemicals. Physiologically changes. Dopamine levels, endorphins, oxytocin, and serotonin. Whether she realizes it or not, she will feel these chemicals in her because I remind her of her friends, I remind her of swimming, I remind her of all these happy things. So when you ask a question like, who is the one person you most love spending your time with, literally the physiology changes. So this goes beyond my opinion. If you try this, you'll be shocked at how much it works, how effective it works, because it's based on science, not just opinion. There's also a basic report that I found online. Email me if you want to read that. Email me at chris@christopherkai.com. It's one of the most powerful things. If you want to connect more deeply, you don't even need 5 minutes. You need like 3 minutes. Ask them, who's the one person you most enjoy spending your time with? And the way you set it up is like, you know what? I was on this webinar recently with a guy named Christopher Kai, and he asked an interesting question. Who's the one person? And you'll be shocked and amazed. One guy I told this to at a speech, he asked this question to a person in the audience, and the person literally was like, wow, that's the first person in like 30 years someone's ever asked me that. And this person, he's actually a friend of mine. He actually started the Hands Across America, which was 30 years ago, and the We Are the World, for those of you who are familiar with that. But this wasn't just someone that's just some random person. He was shocked that no one's ever asked that, So keep that in mind. Next thing, communicate more confidently. How do you do that? The best investment you'll ever make in your life is learning how to public speak. Now, Toastmasters is an international organization. It probably costs less than $100, and they codify how you go about speaking. Just like I've codified how to network and how to build relationships, if you want to succeed, you have to have a system. Without the system, you're not going to be successful. In Toastmasters' case, they'll literally walk you through, here's how you make a 7-minute icebreaker speech, here's how you use visual aids, here's how you change your tone of voice, here's how you create an inspirational speech, here's how you have a great beginning, middle, and end. The point is, though you might be afraid, which most of us are, they've done studies where they've found that people fear public speaking more than they do death, and it's probably because when I public speak or when you see someone public speaking, you start dissecting, oh, that's an ugly suit, or why does that guy have a pimple, that guy seems kind of heavy, that guy's pretty tall, that person has freckles on his face. We all do this, right? But know that if you have a heartfelt message, if you share a sense of genuineness, people won't care what you look like, people won't care what you dress like, they'll just know what your message is, they'll know that heart. So if you want to build confidence, if you want to communicate with confidence, I exponentially highly recommend that you learn how to be a public speaker, and Toastmasters is the most economical way for you to improve your confidence, improve your assertiveness, improve your courage. Literally, you have to improve your communication skills. It'll just exponentially help you. So communicate with confidence, learn how to public speak well. And it's in a supportive setting, by the way. They give you feedback in a supportive setting. All Toastmasters are not created equal, so find the Toastmasters that you are comfortable with, because they will be some of your best and most important friends in your life. Please do that. the next one point is, I'll go back to the other point, but the other point of communicating with confidence is, this is Charlize Theron. She won an Oscar. I also encourage you to take an acting class. Now again, none of us are ever always happy, but all of us can learn how to act happy. There's a reason why Charlize Theron gets paid so much money, is because regardless of how she feels, like in my case, when I'm a speaker, I don't always feel like talking. But when someone hires me and pays me $10,000, $20,000 to speak at a conference, and there's 200 people in the room or 500 people in the room, I better turn that on. One of my actress friends once said really well, she said, amateurs do it when they feel like it, professionals do it regardless of how they feel. Amateurs do it when they feel like it, professionals do it regardless of how they feel. Regardless of how you're feeling, it doesn't matter what you're feeling, because the client might not care, right? So learning how to act more enthusiastically will help you exponentially. So the two things are, learn how to public speak and learn how to act if you want to communicate more confidently. Number 7 is this. I have an email list that I put out. I literally send out weekly emails called Be Inspired. Please sign up at christopherkai.com. And I keep it simple. I use acronyms, avenues of follow-up. I send people articles, videos, and events. You don't want to find the articles or videos or events? I've done it for you. I send that out every week. Let's say one of my clients is having difficulty motivating his employees. Hey, Doug, here's an article I found about this is how you motivate employees. I have a friend who's feeling a bit down. I send them that Steve Jobs video. Hey, Michelle, this is a Steve Jobs video that you might inspire you. And lastly, events. The best way to find clients is to bring potential clients to events. Let's say I went to see an event with Jack Welch. Jack Welch is the former CEO of GE. He turned that company around. And it was a pretty low price point. Ideally, you find events with very high-level executives with a low price point. So I think that event was maybe $40. And I invited my colleague. She's the former CFO of Coffee Beans. Coffee Bean, I don't know if all of you do know that, but it's kind of like Starbucks but for coffee. Well, Starbucks, and it's like coffee. Well, Coffee Beans like Starbucks. It has tea. The point I'm getting at is, it was a high-level event, low price point. I invited my prospective client / colleague / mentor. She loved it, so I looked good. She's also referred me clients, so it's like a thank you. But I also met an executive from City National Bank. City National Bank is the second largest bank in LA. They manage $32 billion in assets. I went to that one event, and I secured that person as a client. I spoke to the wealth managers. So the way to follow up is to send things, add value, articles, videos, events, avenues of follow-up. Sign up for my newsletter at christopherkai.com to sign up for that if you want, because the 80% success is this. We have wasted so much time if you don't follow up. So I literally carve out an hour, 2 hours, or even a day, or even a few days, depending on how many people I meet in events. Because if you don't follow up, it's just working hard, going to events, but not following up, meaning you just waste your time. You got to work smart. Okay, working smart is you have to follow up. The 80% success rate is, it might shock you that they've done studies. Grant Cardone, he's a sales guy, he said that the 80% success is based on the 5th to the 12th follow-up. You heard that right. After the 5th follow-up to the 12th follow-up, that's where the success is. Just because you followed up once, so what? Twice, so what? 3 times, so what? Don't assume that just because someone doesn't respond, that they're not interested. We all live busy lives, and we all know this, right? Just because someone emails you or calls you or texts you, you don't hear back, don't assume that they don't want to talk to you. We all live such busy lives. We all have families and relationships, but if you want to succeed more in follow-up, you have to give them a value, give them something that they might be interested in that's related to their interests and their relationships. And again, sign up for my newsletter because you'll get it for free every week. You'll have a much higher success rate. With the final stretches, find the right networking events to meet the best clients. What I do literally, so I have my book and I have a program called the Premier Begin Networking Program. I actually have an entire calendar of events. So throughout every year, I know exactly where I want to go, because what I find oftentimes is when I ask someone, why do you go to this event? And they usually say, well, Chris, my friend told me it was convenient and it was free. And I'm saying, well, wouldn't it make sense to know who goes to the event, know what percentage of people in terms of how much they make for a living? Because if you, let's say, want to sell a $500,000 house, and realistically, what income level does someone need to buy a $500,000 house or $1 million house? Why wouldn't you be focusing on going to conferences that have doctors or lawyers or CPAs or wealth managers, because if you go into a room and imagine if 80% of the room are potential clients, wouldn't that make sense? So what I suggest my clients to do is create an entire calendar. So let's say you want to sell again a $500,000 house or $1 million house. Well, your entire calendar should be of real estate or I'm sorry, not real estate conferences, like lawyer conferences. I mean all these realtors that go to these real estate conferences. And if you're the point of building a business, one relationship at a time, if you're going to 10 real estate conferences, why don't you go to one real estate conference or two? But 88 of those conferences you go to are where you meet clients, because the best way to build your business is to have more clients. So I understand, yes, you need to go to real estate type conferences, but if you're going to 90% of the conferences that you're going to real estate, I mean, to be honest, you really should be going to 90% non-real estate where there's a client-rich conference than to go to conferences where it's only about real estate, okay? Because again, the point of building a business, one relationship at a time, yes, you can meet and learn about things in real estate, about trends, you can learn that online. You're better off going to conferences that have clients. So for me, I do go to a lot of real estate conferences because those are my clients. You're my clients, right? I go to wealth managers, real estate, any small business owners. So the point is, create a whole calendar, look at where you are in your location, try to find, like I live in Beverly Hills, so I'm 1 block away from the Beverly Wilshire Hotel, which is where they film Pretty Woman. You look for those type of venues wherever you are, like wherever you are in your city, your town, I mean, I don't know if this is global, but the point is, create a whole calendar of events. So instead of going to 10 events that are random, you don't know who's going, you go to one event per month. You're better off going to one event per month that has CEOs and focusing on meeting people there and meeting 10 people there, than going to 10 random events not knowing who these people are. So keep that in mind. This is an example of events that I go to or am mindful of, right? Hope Global Forum, I spoke there this year. That's the speech I gave, Connect More Deeply. Happy to send that to you if you want. My email again is chris@christophercott.com. And these are just examples. If JPHRO is Sean Penn's charity, I highly recommend you going to charity functions that raise at least $1 million for their charity gala. You can volunteer there ideally and just find things you're passionate about. There's 1.5 million nonprofits in the country, but there's really only a select few that raise a little over $1 million. Art of Leasing costs $5,000 to go. World Economic Forum is literally the premier. It's like the Super Bowl of world leaders, where it costs tens of thousands of dollars to go. Now, even if you don't go to these events, the point is, I'm just showing you like the events that I go to or want to go to or know people that go to, right? But it's about what you focus on. Based on your price point of your house, focus on, literally, it's an income thing, right? You know how much they might need to make per month and then per year. So just focus on their annual income and then what professions allow them to have that lifestyle. I'm just showing you my way of organizing the calendar, but you create your own calendar. That's part of my program. And then lastly, we're going to talk about, how do you stand out? And then I'll open up for Q&A. When you look at global brands like Nike, Coca-Cola, Apple, this is also part of my program as well. Email if you want information. But ultimately, you have to create your own personal brand. So last year, after giving all these speeches, I got my clients into these various events, and I realized, just because you get into these events, you still have to brand yourself. You have to be remembered, right? So the reason why Nike, Coca-Cola, Apple, they literally spend billions of dollars. They spend billions of dollars to create this emotional appeal. Going back to the story, stories aren't just this Oprah Winfrey touchy-feel thing. Stories are how we as human beings share our thoughts, share our dreams, share our hopes. So you want to create a personal brand for yourself where when you walk into the room and you introduce yourself and you walk out of that room, how many people in that room will remember you? Because we've all been there. We have a stack of business cards. We're going home. We look through the stack of business cards. And you're looking at these names. You got the business cards, so you clearly have met them. But how many of us have looked at the business card and literally you're like, Michael Moran, who is this person? You literally are looking at this person's business card, you've met them, but you don't know who they are. So the way that you stand out and you're remembered without business cards, many times I don't even have business cards, and the ironic thing is I'm a networking guy supposedly, but it's really about building relationships, because the relationship is built on trust and transparency and on camaraderie, and you build that by sharing a story. And you use models like businesses like Nike, Coca-Cola, and Apple because they have this emotional appeal. What's crazy is we all know that this Apple is the Apple computers. We all know that this swoosh thing is Nike, and we all know that this little cute bear is Coca-Cola, right? But let's say, imagine that, it's literally just an apple, a swoosh, and a bear. But it's because these companies have spent billions of dollars that we now have this emotional appeal. When Steve Jobs passed away, a lot of people were actually sad because he had an emotional appeal. Nike, back in the day with Air Jordans, with Michael Jordan, I want to be like Mike. They created this image, this aspirational image. So I really highly encourage you, don't tell someone you're a realtor with the first question. You ideally want to hold that back. You want to talk about their interests. You want to talk about their relationship, because as soon as they find out you're a realtor, if they don't need a realtor, the conversation is done. You want to give them a reason to remember you, and ideally it's not about as a realtor per se. Maybe you're an art collector, maybe you love tennis, maybe you love golfing. The point is, give them a reason to remember you beyond the business cards. I meet people sometimes, they're so excited to give someone the business card, and I'm like, look, you want to get their information. It doesn't matter even if they have the business card, because you have to follow up. You have to follow up with them, because if the chances are, as you know, it might take 6 months, a year, 3 years. So keep in mind, get their contact information, because giving them your business card, yeah, it might be nice, but how many times are they going to follow up? You want to make sure you're proactive. You want to be hungry. Follow up with them. Keep in mind, give them a reason to remember them. I'm going to share a very basic example. My name is very simple. Ordinary Chris, right? That's why when I introduce myself, or I ask other people to introduce me at a speech, I always say, introduce me as Christopher Kai, because Christopher has more presence. My mother named me after St. Christopher. And the story of St. Christopher is this. For those of you that are Catholic or Christian, back in the day, St. Christopher had these broad shoulders, and there's this raging river. And Christopher would actually, when people came to the raging river, they saw the river, they were scared, going back to the amygdala, oh my gosh, I don't want to sink in the water, I don't want to get hurt, I don't want to hurt myself, I don't want to feel pain. But St. Christopher, with his broad shoulders, would literally carry these people step by step through this raging river to the other side to safety. So my mother named me after this aspirational St. Christopher. I'm like, oh, this is kind of cool. And then one day, he carried this little child over this raging river, and with every single step he took, he felt the weight of the world getting stronger and stronger on his shoulder. He couldn't understand what it was. Why was this little kid feeling this burden on his shoulder? Because St. Christopher is the patron saint of transportation. He literally carries people to where they want to go in life. And this little baby turns out to be baby Jesus reincarnated. And his name, Christopher, is Christ bearer. He's bearing the burden of Christ. Now here I did share a very basic story about my name. Chris is ordinary. Christopher, which my mother named me after, is extraordinary. So whatever you do in life, be extraordinary. I turned a very basic name, Chris, into an extraordinary name named St. Christopher. And so in your case, be extraordinary. Know why your mother or father named you something like that, okay? And I gave you an example. I'll give you a very specific actual example. I was giving a speech at Keller Williams. For all the Keller Williams people in the house, what's up? I actually want to speak at a Keller Williams retreat, so let me know if you know any contacts. But or any retreat or event, by the way. I went to speak at Keller Williams in Miami last December, and I met a guy there named Farouk, and he was actually showing the house they were in, over $1 million. And I said, hey, Farouk, that's a very interesting name. He's like, oh, it's a very common name. It's a very common Arabic name. And off the bat, he already was like downplaying his name. And I'm like, well, it's a very unique name. What does it mean? He didn't know. And this guy is in his 60s, right? And so what do? I'm a curious guy. I go to my smartphone. I'm typing in, Farouk, meaning Arabic, and it means truth. And I'm like, how cool is that, right? So I told that to everyone there. How amazing is his name to be named Truth? He says it's common, but I didn't know it, and I think a lot of Americans didn't know it. So know something is basically your name, because if someone hires you as a realtor, they will know. Let's say I'm not a realtor, right? But let's say I spend 20 hours on an event that's global, and I know there's people that I'm going to meet there. I spend a lot of time. I've literally spent thousands of hours on events. If you know I spend that much time on events, so I know where I'm going to and meeting the people, well, that's the same amount of time I'll spend on your property that I'm going to either help you sell or help you buy. What I'm getting at is, if they know that you're a knowledgeable person, if they know you're going to research, then that's the same amount of quality and research and time you're going to research on their house, and they're going to feel like they're invested. So the personal branding is this. Make sure that you have that emotional appeal. Make sure they remember you. It's not about your business card. It's about your story. And even with me, when I get approached all the time now, like, oh, Chris, can I take you out for coffee. I'm like, sorry, like if someone's hiring me for a speech for $20,000, you're gonna take me out for coffee? I'm sorry, I can't, right? But if you say, oh, Chris, I have a place where you can speak, or I want you to come speak at my realtor. I know the conference, which happened, by the way. The reason why I even got this to speak at certain conferences is because you're adding value. Just like I'm adding value when you sign up to my email list. I'm giving you articles, I'm giving you videos, I'm telling you where to go, which I spent time researching. Well, if you want to stand out, and it's not just for me, by the way, it's for anyone. Figure out if your clients are entrepreneurs, what's the thing that entrepreneurs want to do? They want to find more clients. Well, finding more clients, you'll stand out. Instead of, I'm a realtor. As soon as you say you're a realtor, they already pigeonhole you, unfortunately, just like when you meet a doctor or lawyer. But in your case, if you meet a doctor or lawyer, that's a good thing for you, right? But just keep that in mind, okay? You want to stand out? Make sure you have your personal brand. I'm going to end with the final thing. It's all about mindset. You look at networking, you look at building relationships at this ugly, gloomy, scary door, or you look at it as this exponential opportunity, wow, this mansion of opportunity. It's all about mindset. The last thing I'll end with is this. Reid Hoffman, fastest way to change yourself is to hang out with people that you want to be like. Like I said, I met John on a train 4 years ago. He's a cool, courageous, friendly, patriotic guy. I want to be like him, and I want to hang out like him, right? I have a more simple thing. The best way to change your life is to change your relationships. I post a lot of videos on YouTube, and literally, that's what I want to do in my life. The best way to change your life is to change your relationships. You want to stop smoking? Hang out with non-smokers. You want to stop drinking? Hang out with non-drinkers. You want to be more ambitious? Hang out with people more ambitious. You want to be more outgoing? Hang out with more people that are outgoing. So it's so important that you keep things simple. My whole webinar was about how do you build your business one relationship at a time. You start with the relationship with yourself. You start with that mindset saying that, you know what, Chris, I believe in what you're saying. I want to be more courageous. How do I do that? After this webinar, in the next hour, go do one thing you're afraid of. Go to lunch by yourself, and trust me when I say, the more things you do by yourself, because we don't do that enough, don't take your phone with you. Just do something you're afraid of, and just keep it simple. You do that every day. You'll be amazed. Thank you so much for attending. I really appreciate your attention. It seems kind of weird sometimes when, when I do webinars, I'm literally talking to myself in a sense. But feel free to email me with questions, or you can ask any questions now. Please sign up for my newsletter, Be Inspired. If you email me, I'll send you that happy chemical PDF. I'll send you a link to 5 powerful networking strategies, and I'll send you this report that I created that I codified when I did meet Elon Musk, who founded Tesla, PayPal, and SpaceX. But again, it's all about adding value. I just spent about an hour giving. When you go to a lot of webinars, they sell products. I've mentioned my products. If you're interested in those products, you can ask me about them. I pretty much just codify how I go about networking and how I get business for my clients. So Julie, if you want to open up for questions, I'm happy to answer any questions. We have about 10 minutes.
Great. Thank you, Christopher. So if any of you have any other questions for Christopher, go ahead and type them in the Q&A box, and we'd really appreciate it. In the meantime, we've got one from Forrest, and he's asking, we founded our realty company to promote energy-smart, conscious real estate choices. Do you have any thought on how appealing to big game clients who may not yet be green?
I would focus on people like Kimball Musk. Kimball Musk is, well, actually, Solar City. So I would focus on the Solar City world. You literally Google the Solar City companies, find out where those companies are in your actual region, and then find out like how you can get involved with any of those green type oriented charities. Like Oceana is a charity that you might be interested in. Oceana is spelled ocean and an A. James Cameron is involved with that. Leonardo DiCaprio has his own charity. So from a celebrity standpoint, focus on the people that are very environmentally friendly and focus on the charities that they go to in your specific area. And then Solar City, I don't know why more realtors are not focusing on Solar City clients, because the trend lines are clear. Whether you believe in global warming or not, it's crystal clear where the economy is going. It's crystal clear where solar is going. So with Kimball Musk, he has something called the Kitchen Community, where he wants to teach learning gardens across various schools. So you really want to start targeting like people like a Kimball Musk, who's Elon Musk's brother, who is really passionate about the environment, who has nonprofits you can get involved with, and look at your specific area. And you literally go to a website called looktothestars.org. I'm actually a producer for them, where I write articles sometimes. But looktothestars.org tells you the charities that celebrities are involved with. So from a very basic level, find anything related to Solar City, find anything related to any environment groups like Oceana or in your group. But remember, the price point is important. If you go to an event that costs $50 for a gala, that you're probably not going to find many big gamers, people of influence. But if you go to an event that costs $500 or $1,000 or $5,000, like Rihanna has an event in December named after her grandmother, and it costs $3,000. And again, you can pay for those, but you can ultimately, ideally, volunteer. Or I sometimes encourage people to get a press pass, which is a part of my program. So I encourage you to do that, and email me if you have any other questions about that.
Thanks, Christopher. That's a great answer. That's some good advice. I don't see any other questions coming in, but we can give it just a minute.
Sounds good. I really appreciate the 60 people on this webinar. It's always awesome to know that you can add value. Oh, there's my webcam again. And this is if you can see, this is the necklace I was telling you about. There's 4 characters on the necklace, and it's longevity and prosperity. So my grandfather chose to impart the 2 principles that he most believed in, which is longevity and prosperity for his younger generation. And again, it's about the story. So if you meet someone, just compliment them on their necklace or their tie or their hat, and just keep it simple. And the definition was just keep it polite, right? Any other questions?
I think that's it. Christopher, once again, thank you for doing this presentation for us, and for everybody on. Thank you for joining us, and we'll send out thank you email when we're done. Thanks so much, Christopher.
Thanks so much for the opportunity, Julie. Bye, everyone.